Good evening, everybody. This is Whiskey Wednesday Weekly. This is my guest, Ryan, and I won't say his last name because I don't want to mess it up. What is it?
Stellhorn.
Stellhorn, yeah. I know it's probably easy, but when you see it, you're like, do I want to pronounce it incorrectly or not? Anyway, Ryan is a young Marine officer helicopter pilot, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an interesting story. Ryan and I met about a month ago, I guess, maybe 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, roughly.
We were invited to go to this wine picking event or grape picking event so the guy could harvest his wines. So we're out in the middle of the, I guess this huge vineyard picking these grapes, and then we just got to talking a little bit, and me being the ex-Navy guy, and then he talks about the academy. I'm thinking, oh, I got a Navy officer, and then he tells me that he converted to a Marine pilot, right? So we're going to get into a little bit about his story. I kind of hit it off. Him and his wife are super outgoing and fun, and they live locally here in the San Diego County area. I thought it would be kind of cool to have him tell a little bit about his story because at a young, age, first of all, we actually have about 25 years difference. I mean, I'll be 50 next year, so 24 years. But you being a helicopter pilot, especially since it's a Marine helicopter pilot, I know you guys have them. I'm just saying, like, I've never met an officer Marine. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Usually just naval officers or Army officers. Mm-hmm. So it'll be pretty fun. But we're going to first start out with a little bit of a light shot tonight. Now, Ryan actually likes whiskey. Yeah. And so he brought a couple bottles that he was able to donate to the show, not give me, just have an ounce taste or so. The first one we're going to do, just because I don't know a lot about it, but he did say that a friend of his, correct, gave this to you?
Yeah, who's very into whiskey. So
yeah, and see, it's from Kentucky. I don't know, but I know it's 50% alcohol, so it's going to be a strong one. Yeah, let's light it up. So, as you know, we're trying to take it down a notch so Ken can walk out of here in one piece. And my wife dropped me off kind enough, but he lives close enough to the beach. And see, he can do whatever he wants because he doesn't have to go anywhere after this. We're in the back of his yard, so it's kind of a cool thing. So we've got Colonel E.H. Taylor Small Batch from Kentucky. It's a straight bourbon whiskey. So we'll try that and start it off from here. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's actually, it's got a little bit of a burn to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can tell it's 100 proof.
But it's definitely
bad.
strong. Yeah, wait till you taste this one, the Boone's. That's 117 proof. Oh, wow. But you don't taste it. It's weird. It's a different style for sure.
Shoot it all at once?
Yeah, well, you can. I mean, you don't have to. I just like to do a taste, and then I kind of knock it back to see how it tastes. And if you hear any kind of rock noises, we have the good microphone, of course, behind us, but we have some pebbles on the ground, so we're going to try and keep our feet as still as possible. But let's go right in, and you can take time. We've got 8 minutes between the next one, so don't worry about it.
All right.
So let's go right into your story. A little bit about your background. Okay, obviously being 25, people are going to be like, well, how much can you, well, I don't want to go into your childhood per se, but let's talk about, where you're from originally. That's great.
Yeah, so I grew up in O'Fallon, Missouri. It's right outside the St. Louis area.
Oh,
Lived there most of my life.
You say McFallon or Fallon?
O'Fallon.
O'Fallon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Sounds like an Irish town or something, right?
Yeah. So I grew up there. With the exception of 3 years when I was young, we moved to Florida, but then we moved back.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, that's where most of my family's
from.
Wow.
And then you actually, we'll go into a little bit more detail later, but your wife is also from that town, correct?
Yeah, nearby town.
But still local.
Yeah, same area.
Yeah, where you could actually meet.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like your journey as far as I think you had mentioned to me there was some passion about space or some kind of being in the sky or something as a kid. So what all started there?
Yeah. So I mean, as a kid, all I ever wanted to do was be an astronaut. That was my dream as a child.
Really, like a true astronaut. I mean, like you wanted to go.
Even my room growing up, one of our neighbors was an artist, and my parents had her paint my room. The walls were all blue and had the planets all over it, stars on the ceiling and everything. So,
I don't want to cut you off, but I mean, what I'm saying is like that's almost every boy, right? But you actually like followed through with it a little bit, right? Into aviation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that exactly. That kind of evolved into, I guess, a little bit more of a realistic dream or interest in a way with just the aviation world, and like you said, being in the sky.
Right. Like so that was truly like when you were a kid, you were like you really wanted to be an astronaut. Though.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Now, did that get sidetracked somehow, or you were like, okay, I'll take being in the military and flying helicopters?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah. Basically, like I said, I guess it kind of evolved into that.
It wasn't like you had your heart set to go to NASA and you just wanted to be something involved with aeronautical at some point. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, most boys, I don't want to say most because that's generalizing, but I know like, baseball or football or, whatever, and you're like, dude, I want to be a pilot or some kind of form of aerial. Now, did you ever have interest in flying like commercial planes, or you're still too young to worry about that? Well, you're in the military for one.
Right,
so.
and a lot of people do transfer from the military aviation world into that.
Got it.
But I think
you don't know yet.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You're 25.
Yeah, but my initial interest was military aviation
okay.
specifically.
That was truly an interest, like to be in the military and fly like jets or.
Really, anything. I didn't have that was an option going through the flight school process.
Nice.
So yeah, you all start on the same aircraft and then you branch off from there to different things.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, I think you had mentioned. Tell us a little bit about your, and we'll get into more details of certain stories because I really want to know what you can and cannot tell us about flying.
Right.
I'm sure there's not really privacy about flying,
right.
The difficulties, but I'd love to know a little bit more about that. But right now, let's talk a little bit about what how you met. You said, I think you said you went to a certain school, like in high school, right? Like a all-boys school or something?
So that's just pretty typical in the St. Louis
area.
Oh, it
is?
Yeah, in the St. Louis area is like a big Catholic community. So I grew up going to Catholic schools. I went to an all-boys high school in the St. Louis area.
So private, but all boys?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And so did you guys like the typical, you'd see the movies where they we're going to sneak over to the Catholic girls' school?
Well, it's funny because my wife's school, she also went to an all-girls Catholic school, and it was about 2 miles down the road.
Right.
So,
so you just let your imagination figure out what happened there, right? So that's how you met your wife then?
Yeah, so we didn't meet until senior year, but just through mutual friends because obviously going to an all-girls school or an all-guys school,
and
she
her going to
all-girls. Yeah, the friend groups kind of intermingle.
Nice.
And so yeah, we met our senior year in that fall, and then we kind of started dating over winter time frame. Then both left for college the following summer.
So that's a good point. Let's hit on that for a second. So when you say college, you mean the academy, correct?
Right. Yeah.
When she says college, where'd she go?
So she went to the University of Kentucky, and so she went there on a full ride scholarship to play soccer. So,
okay.
So yeah,
that's why she's always athletic and stuff. Yeah, she's always her athletic clothes because she played soccer.
Exactly,
okay. And that I don't want to get into her story. Not that I'm going to interview her, but did she go all 4 years and play soccer?
She did. Yeah, nice. She did. So it's pretty awesome.
She did her whole thing and got out, and I mean that's pretty much it unless you're going to go pros or Olympics, right? But that wasn't her goal. She was just happy to get through school for free.
Yeah, that's kind of her dream, playing the SEC. And
well, she had you on the other side. She's like, it's now I got to, to get back to you. Now let's talk a little bit about that. The academy, we'll hit that because I really want to go into that. Mm-hmm. So did you guys actually have a long distance relationship for 4 years?
We did, yeah.
Wow.
So and it was a lot because the academy is basically college, but with a lot of added restrictions and responsibilities.
Yeah.
So
almost like going from the Catholic school to another school like that, right?
Right. So and we were pretty limited on what we could do and where we could go on weekends and all that. And then her being a soccer player, she honestly, her restrictions were just as restrictive, if not more so.
Right, because they have practice all the time.
Exactly.
I mean, you're collegiate, and my niece plays college soccer and in Arizona, and she's a superstar. But I'm just saying, it's dedication.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And she's got a fiance that goes to the same school, fortunately.
Oh okay.
But they're gonna get married in 2 years when they graduate. But I'm saying that is when you're in there, you really do have to focus.
Right.
But which is kind of nice though, because at least you weren't really worried. Not that would ever come to your mind because you were in love.
Right.
But you're just so busy. You're like, I love you, and that's it. Now I've got work, she's got soccer.
Right, yeah, she had her thing, I had
4 years probably went by like that in reality.
It is crazy how fast it went by.
So let's talk a little bit about the academy. I do know a couple people that have went, but I've really never figured it out. I mean, I saw that one movie, I think, with the guy who played the Goblin's son from Spider-Man.
James Franco?
Yeah. He played where he was in the academy. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was pretty hard. I mean, they do beat you a little bit, not this way, but physically, right? Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty tough school, right?
It is, yeah. I mean, like I said, it's like college in a way that, I mean, you're earning your bachelor's degree by the end of the 4 years, but yeah, there's lots of added responsibilities like military.
You have to learn all the military stuff now, right? On top of school, correct? Now, what did you major in, or is there such a thing when you're in the academy?
There is, So I majored in mechanical engineering.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you are a graduate of a mechanic. You are a mechanical engineer.
Correct. Yeah.
Dude, this guy's making me feel stupid, man. I mean, fortunately, I've got a decent career that I've had. But man, you're like, oh, I'm a mechanical engineer. I fly helicopters, and I'm an officer at 25 years old. That's good though. But you were stuck it out. Now, I think you mentioned our timer's going to go off here in a little bit, but I do want to get into this. I think you mentioned that you went in as a Navy guy, correct? Or is it kind of like the Navy and the Marines share a school?
So we share a school in a way, I guess. So everyone just goes in as a midshipman, a Navy midshipman. There's no designation one way or the other until your senior year. So that's when we have what's called like a service selection.
Oh.
And so you put in your preferences of what you want to do after graduation as an officer. Mm-hmm. And then from there, after graduating, you branch off into whatever community you're going into. And a lot of people don't realize that the Marine Corps is under the Department of the Navy. So actually about a quarter of our graduating class became Marine officers.
So that's how you started out. Okay, cool. So before we get into the next story, my timer went off. So we're going to do another shot. Now, again, this is Ryan's donation. This one's actually called Triple Deuce Whiskey, the 222. And you had said that this comes from where?
Smithfield, Virginia. I have a friend that's his hometown. He just moved out here, also a helicopter pilot.
Okay, which I met him about 6 weeks ago. He was the designated driver for Ryan and his wife when we were tasting some wine. So he's still here, though, you said, right?
So, yeah, he's stationed out here now, and he is doing some training out in 29 Palms right now for about a month.
And he's a Marine as well?
Right.
Okay.
Just flies a different helicopter
than
I do.
Nice, nice. Very cool. Yeah, he was a good guy. He was cracking up hard.
Yeah.
He was like, I think we were talking to like Ed Sheeran. I said, I'm in a better looking version of Ed Sheeran or something. Full redhead, dude. I was like, dude, you're getting all the chicks just walking in the room, bro. This smells really good. Oh, that's smooth.
I think so too. Yeah.
That is smooth. Yeah. That is really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a different flavor altogether than the other one. It's got a different bite to it, but it's a lot less. I didn't taste the burn of the heat.
Yeah, same. And it says it's distilled from wheat, so I think that's obviously unique for whiskey.
Yeah,
so
it is.
That probably
absolutely. It's not gluten free, obviously. If it's distilled from wheat, right? We're in that era. You know, my kids are, at least my daughter, she's celiac, so it's like, oh, you can't have that one, Ben. Right. So what's interesting is I start that. I would like to get into a little bit about so the academy. So let's dig into a little bit about, obviously your selection was there once you're a senior, but how is the academy? What can you tell us inside which makes it tough? I mean, other than the grades, is there the reveilles are every morning at 6 and you got to do PT? I mean, or is that a separate class?
So that's true to some extent. So most of the restrictions and responsibilities come as a plebe, it's called. That's like the name for a freshman.
Yeah, so, plebe, yeah.
Yeah, so as a plebe, you start out the year over the summer, actually. So you get to the academy around June time frame, and I guess that's essentially like the indoctrination or like the small little boot camp, if you want to call it that, before you actually start the academic year for the freshmen. So you start, so the incoming plebes, the freshmen, they go about 8 weeks early, and they're trained by the upper class prior to the start of the school year.
So it's like a mini boot camp, sort of?
Yeah, in a way. And then once the school year starts, there's workouts on several mornings of the week. There's extra, like, duties and watches that the freshmen have to stand. Lots of some things are kind of like weird and hard to explain, almost like traditions and things. But a lot of it comes down on the plebes, the freshmen. And then as you become an upper class, you gain more responsibilities. Right. So as a freshman, like I said, our weekends were limited. You can only leave on certain weekends, and you weren't allowed to stay out overnight or past a certain time. But as you get to be a junior and senior, you kind of earn those privileges.
It's similar to high school or college in any way. That you as a freshman of any school, you're either getting a little hazed, and I mean, in a different sense, obviously. I mean, when I was hazed when I was 19 in 91, it's a whole different world. And being hazed now, right? But in my mind, I didn't take it that way. It was fun. I knew it was kind of part of the initiation, per se. So that's what you were probably saying, like hard to explain just because there's things that are tradition that you've got to kind of go through. Now, did you play sports? Because I know like the Naval Academy plays football and things like that.
Right.
You're kind of a big guy, so I didn't know.
No, I didn't play any of the, because it's a D1 school, so I didn't play any of that, any sports. They do require that everyone does some sort of at least intramural or club sport or activity, just since of the physical mission, like being in shape and everything is a big part of being a naval officer.
Sure.
but I shot on the trap and skeet team there actually, so not the most like
no, but you shot
physical.
guns then.
Yeah. So I grew up shooting
cool.
shotguns and stuff and hunting, so that was fun for me.
Damn right. I mean, it's like, I know you're not running track or whatever, but it's something you're good at,
right.
And believe me, I used to hunt when I was a kid in the Eastern Shore, the deers.
Right.
So you were like, dude, that's what I was doing in St. Louis growing up.
Yeah.
I might as well take that up, and it counts as my sport, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the next part is I want to get into that selection as a senior.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the process like? Is it just, hey, man, they show up to your door and be like, hey, what do you want to be, a Marine or now, were you studying to be a pilot the whole time? Is that like a class?
So it's not really a class, but there are things that you can do to set yourself up basically throughout your entire 4 years at the academy for whatever you desire.
You kind of knew what you wanted to go into, so you set yourself up for almost like a major.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you're a mechanical engineer, as a military major, you kind of set yourself up for helicopters.
Right.
Okay.
And so the main things that you could put in on your selection sheet, I think we had 6 choices, and it was you could be a surface warfare officer, so being on a ship.
Yep.
You could be a submarine officer. You could be a Marine, and then you could either go ground or aviation within the Marines.
Got it. Okay.
And then Navy SEALs and Navy EOD were kind of the main core choices.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, you could do things to set yourself up for those throughout your time.
Got it.
Because in between academic semester or years, so over the summer, you do summer training blocks, we call them. And so what you chose to do during those summer training blocks would kind of set you up for those. So in order to be a Marine, you had to go to Quantico, Virginia for a month and do a training where you're being evaluated the whole time.
Right.
And they would kind of rate you whether or not they thought you were qualified.
To be a Marine. And now you had mentioned, that's a good point, summers. So you're saying you didn't even get to see your wife in the summer?
So the way our summers work, they divided them into 3 blocks. They came out to be about 3 or 4 weeks for each block, we call them. One of them, they let you take leave, and you have the opportunity to go home or do whatever you want to do. Yeah, and then the other 2 blocks were used for training. So depending on what year you were, in the academy, you did different trainings. I did lots of different things. Went to Japan and was on a destroyer for a month.
There you go.
We got to see submarines, like I said, do marine training, do aviation training. So you got a little bit of a taste. You got
to taste all of it before you became a senior to say that was really my thing. Even though you kind of already decided or wanted to do certain things, they gave you opportunities to be like, I really didn't realize how cool that was. I want to go that route instead of what I'm kind of bored with something. Like if you, because believe me, that's what majors are, right? People go to college and they're like, I want to be this, and then they get out and they're like, oh. That's not, 2 years in, they're like, I want to switch majors, right? That's kind of, they give you the opportunity. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, because I think you had mentioned, too, that you guys then got married after college, right? So you both decided, all right, how did you propose in a short, simple way?
So I proposed, it was over one of our Christmas breaks, I guess junior year of college.
Junior,
proposed.
okay.
Yeah, so I took her to this Christmas light thing that we did every holiday season. We would go and
it's like a St. Louis thing,
right?
Okay, got it.
Yep. So I proposed to there under the Christmas lights.
That's pretty easy. I'm sure she was probably no worries. We got you covered. And then from there you got married, and you got married back home then.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of how everything started, right? So when you got married, then what happened? Or let's. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to skip back, but you talked about the decision. So what does that mean? Like when did they sit you in a room and say, hey, what do you want to be? Or
right. So we did it through an online thing. As far as putting in our
request,
what we wanted.
Oh, okay.
And then once it came time to inform us what we were actually selected for, the entire academy, the Brigade of Midshipmen is called, is about 4,000 students. It's divided up into 30 different companies.
Nice.
So you kind of have your company that you do everything with.
Yeah.
So then the seniors from our company all went, and our company officer was called, who was an actual Navy Lieutenant 03.
Oh, okay.
He then informed us of what we were chosen for.
Oh, okay. Even though you put in for it, so it's kind of like, that's pretty cool. You're waiting, did I get in? That kind of thing, right? Even though you're already in, but did I get what I wanted, right?
Right.
That's pretty freaking cool, man. Was it good news?
It was, yeah.
You got what you wanted, exactly.
I got my first choice.
Were you around some bad, did you around people that didn't get the news they wanted?
Yeah, and I definitely was. Most people at least have an idea of, even if they want this certain thing, they know kind of where they stand a little bit.
Based on their grades or performance levels and evaluations and stuff.
Exactly. And some communities are very competitive, things like SEALs and stuff like I said. So they kind of set their expectations.
Right.
But yeah, there's definitely some people who don't
Yeah.
get their first
Now,
choice.
when you're, as far as a SEAL, I mean, obviously, I'm very familiar with that, just because of what being in that particular thing. You don't have to be an officer to be a SEAL, right? Or do you?
No, you don't.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's both.
So I knew that when I was in boot camp, they were like, "Hey, you want to be a SEAL?" And I was more into the EOD thing.
Right.
Because I like that whole. I didn't want to be a SEAL because I knew what the hell that required. And I'm not like now. I actually think I'd be better off as a SEAL because at 19, I wasn't built like that quite yet. Not physically, but mentally. Now I'm like, I love all the hard shit.
Right.
Tough Mudders and Spartans and running marathon. I think I get into that at 48.
Right.
So now I feel like other than the physical part, like just being older, not 20 anymore, that would be something that interests me. So when you're a SEAL, do you still have to go through the same SEAL training as an officer? So they just mingle you guys, do you know?
Officers and enlisted.
Yeah.
So my roommate actually, I had two roommates, at my time at the academy.
Right.
But one of my roommates went on and was a SEAL. So he still goes to BUDS and does all the same training.
Right.
I think the expectations on the officers are just a little higher because they expect them, whenever they divide them up into, like, I think he called them, like, boat teams and things like that, it's the officers that are put in charge.
That would be the leadership. Yeah,
exactly.
I gotcha. Okay,
so
but they're still going through the same shit.
Exactly.
I gotcha. Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's good.
Right,
that's good. But
yeah,
at the same time, like you said, expectations of officers a little higher, and maybe not the physical part, but the leadership part. That's pretty interesting. Well, our timer went off. So the next one we're going to do is a bottle that I actually had bought, Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select. Jack Daniel's makes several. It's truly my favorite, like, every day, just because it's easy. But I don't do a lot of every day. Like, I have such a selection at home. I'm more like, hey, I want to try a different thing. So the fact that I went with the Select, I hadn't had it before. I'd had the Double Barrel, the Black, all these different kinds, here. But I never tried this, so I was like, it's really a good bottle. It's obviously on the higher side as far as cost, not too expensive, but just the fact that it's Jack Daniel's, you're like, man, why did I pay so much for Jack Daniel's? But it is a lot better. So we'll go ahead and try this. Oh, and you're going to love this one, bro. You're going to love this one.
It smells great.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
Isn't that good?
It is.
There's just something
awesome.
about Jack Daniels, man.
Yeah.
I mean, even with the different levels. Because if you just drank regular Jack, you might even make a face.
Right.
Not that it's bad, but it's not something you just sit in a warm glass and sip it. But the quality of the way they make it is super good. So it's second time. Sorry, guys. My timer went away while he's enjoying the whiskey. All right, so I love the way this is going so far because I'm actually like this is why I do it because like I said, I learn a lot from people.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just because I want everyone else to see it. I like having this in my own little record, and then obviously you don't have kids yet.
Right.
So like they'll be like, hey, Dad did this video. You'll be able to archive it and keep it and be like, man, remember when you were 25, Dad? Now I'm kicking your ass at 45 or whatever. Who knows, right? That's how my kids are. But so cool. So you ended up marrying your wife, and I apologize. I want to make sure I get her name. What's her name?
Jade.
Jade. Okay.
Yeah, Jade.
So you married Jade. You've then got your helicopter school, or your helicopter. Like, hey, you're going to be a helicopter pilot. Is that correct? Or just a pilot? Like
So I knew. So like I said, whenever I selected, it was the fall of my senior year at the academy.
Right.
I knew I was going. My service selection was Marine Aviation, so I just knew I was going to be a pilot in the Marine Corps.
Didn't know
what's kind of pilot or anything like that.
Could have been a jet.
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's not until flight school that you start to split off.
So now you have another freaking school to determine how you're going to go.
Right, and there's actually another school before that.
Oh, jeez.
So after Naval Academy graduation, all Marine officers go to what's called the basic school.
Okay.
So that's in Quantico, Virginia. So that was kind of our first move.
And I know Quantico is a big thing. Like I've heard of Quantico. It's it's like a big deal, right?
Yeah. So we spent my wife and I spent a couple months in Annapolis, where the academy's at, after graduation, because they kind of have to hold the graduates. They can't send you all out at once to their respective communities, just because it would overload those schools.
I gotcha.
So they keep you around for a little bit. So it was nice. It was almost like a second honeymoon.
Because you were really doing nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, not a whole. They assign you a job at the academy, but it was summer, and
at this point you're like a grown up, and you're like, dude, I'm out of school.
Right,
what are you gonna do, right? Yeah. And Annapolis is beautiful.
Yeah. It's a great town. And so from there we went to Quantico, Virginia, and then I did the basic school, which is 6 months long.
6 months, okay. But at this point now, she's graduated. You guys are moving on. You're together, family, all that. Now she's not looking for work at this point.
No, she was work. Yeah. She's the type that wants to work for sure. So she got a job before we even moved to Virginia, working at Enterprise in their management training program. So So yeah, Enterprise was great because they were able to move her from Virginia and then to Florida, where we ended up for flight school.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
yeah.
So cool. So that kind of went ahead. And then again, are those other schools? How real quick, was Quantico hard? Is it pretty easy? What was it about?
So it's tough. So the whole philosophy of it is, the Marine Corps, the center of the Marine Corps is infantry. So even though I'm a pilot, like what the Marine Corps does at its core is infantry.
Of course.
And so, you've probably heard the term every Marine is a rifleman.
Sure.
So in the same sense, they like to say that every Marine Corps officer is an infantry platoon commander. So even though I'm not, they want to give you those basic skills.
Right.
So the basic school is all about teaching us how to lead a platoon of infantry Marines.
Okay.
So it was a lot of like hiking through the woods of Quantico, Virginia, and tactics like leading attacks and defenses and things like that. Yeah, navigating just through the woods.
Right.
A lot of those like basic core skills of being an infantry platoon commander. So it was tough. It had its challenges physically for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we did 15-mile hikes with 100 plus pounds on our back and things like that.
Oh, awesome.
But it was enjoyable. I don't think I wouldn't want to be an
infantry
officer.
You were not like, I don't want to just fly back and be like, man, I really missed it. But it was, at the time, it's an experience.
Yeah,
and that's what I feel like is kind of cool about it. Like, it's part of the process. And I'm trying to teach my kids that. It's like, hard things are sometimes cool.
Yeah.
It sucks in it. It really does. But when you come out of the other side from it, you're a better person.
Absolutely.
Because of it, right?
Yeah. The military is full of those. And same with the academy. Like, it's not your typical college experience.
Right.
Like, obviously we don't get the party and all that as much as other people do,
much
but
more demanding.
You come out of it and you're like, you look back on those memories and you cherish them
and
all the friends you made and everything.
It's super cool. Yeah. And so Ray Stryler, who was on 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was a Green Beret, and he was telling me about how he was an officer. So same situation. He's like, I never actually, as an officer, I didn't have to actually, I learned how to lead men in the infantry. He was in Vietnam a couple times, and all this stuff. But it's a similar situation. He had to learn how to be a battle guy, but he was always the officer, so he was kind of the protected guy. The what do they call them, the grunts in a sense.
Right.
That's what they call themselves.
Right. Yeah.
They would be the ones that would protect the guy who's supposed to, kind of be leading the charge.
Right.
So you had to learn those type of skills.
Right.
And as a helicopter pilot too, I would think if you had to go down, you have to be able to, like, in the middle of the woods or something. They're like, dude, you've got to find your way back somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of a big
those
deal.
Basic skills, and a lot of their thought process behind it is even if you're not in the infantry community,
correct.
As a pilot, for example, I'm going to be talking to those guys on the ground at some point. So if I understand their mindset and their language and what they're talking about, then I'll be able to better communicate with them and assist them.
Yeah, I mean it's all now. We have a few minutes before our next shot, so I want to talk a little bit about. So, didn't you from there? Now that you're done with Quantico, which is the Marine training, then you go to a flight school. You said in Florida, right?
Right.
Okay.
So flight school it starts off in Pensacola, Florida for everyone, and it's Naval flight school now. So again, seeing how the Marines fit into the Navy. So everyone starts out in Pensacola. You do a little bit of ground school type of thing, just like academics, and you do some swimming and things, like swim survival training.
Oh, okay. Like if you had to go down in water, kind of thing. It's all for that reason, right? Okay.
And so you start off there, and then everyone flies what's called the T6. It's like a single-engine propeller plane, and that's what you start off on.
A real one.
Right.
Like you actually go. Now, I don't want to skip back but you did say something about you took some in high school. You took some flying lessons, just traditional, like regular.
Right. Yeah.
Let's hit on that real quick.
So that was kind of just. So as we talked about, my interest kind of developed in the more like aviation and military and things like that. I started to look into the service academies, and I actually looked into the Air Force first.
Okay. Because it's known for air.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, well, what can I do to set myself up to potentially, eventually become a military pilot?
Right.
And so I was like, well, maybe I could look into getting my private pilot's license. And I didn't end up going all the way through and getting it because the more I read into it, the military they don't require any prior aviation experience.
Right.
But I happened to have a baseball coach that was a certified flight instructor and had his own plane. So I took a couple lessons with him just to kind of get a feel for things and even see if I liked flying.
Yeah.
And so I flew a handful of flights with him just to kind of get a feel for it.
But that's freaking cool, though. I mean,
so
you at least understood, like that whole college thing we talked about. Like, you flew and you're like, this is what I like. This is bad. This is super nice. This is fun. Yeah. So then you kind of knew that. Yeah. Are they arresting somebody? I hear You hear that speakers?
Yeah. I don't know where
like,
that's coming from.
There's either someone on the corner talking about God, or there's someone like getting arrested down the street. No one talks about bullhorns normally around like neighborhoods, you know? That's funny. Well, we only have a few seconds, so I still want to hit that Florida school.
Right.
Because I've got some stuff I want to ask you for that. So we'll just go ahead and do another shot early. So the next one is, you hear that? It's a trip, right?
That is weird. It's pretty secluded around here. I'm surprised.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like weird. You're in this like super quiet neighborhood. All of a sudden, there's like bullhorn. They're coming to get you.
Yeah.
Anyway, this next one is actually Boone's bourbon, and I was telling Ryan about it before. This is actually it's literally just was part of I'm a quarterly whiskey subscription. Okay, and so because of that, this was the selection. I'm like, okay, it's the obvious choice, right? It just came up, and my name is Boone, so why wouldn't I try Boone's bourbon, right? Never heard of it before. Well, it's 117 proof, which means it's 58.5% alcohol. So it's the strongest one I've ever had.
Wow.
But to be honest with you, you put that on a cube, just a nice cube over, little 2 fingers, it's amazing. Ryan's obviously a big guy. He's knocking this stuff out, and believe me, I don't care. I mean, I love. Jay's gonna be like, "Who the hell are you, man?" He'd be asleep at 7 o'clock. But the good thing is Tyler Boone. I reached out to him on Instagram. I literally followed him, searched him, and sure enough, he said he was going to do one. He would do one of these with me.
That's awesome.
So in about 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to get together, probably after the weekend of the Halloween weekend, and we're going to do it.
Awesome.
It'll probably be Zoom because he's in LA, even though I don't mind doing it. But since we don't know each other, like you and I, we're like, we talk, we're like, you feel safe.
Right.
But I'm a complete stranger to the guy. Like, he's probably like, yeah, I'm going to have you show up at my house in LA and just, during a pandemic, it's just not normal, you know. So I'm all about it. But anyway, this one, I think you'll really enjoy it. It might take you should probably sip that one. It's got a little burn to it. But the flavor, sorry, that's me. It's not that bad.
I was going to say, you wouldn't think it's
super smooth, right?
Yeah.
My problem is I usually have a cough drop, and it's not because I keep my whistle wet a lot.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So when I do whiskey sometimes, and after 3 or 4 of these, it's drying out.
Right.
So I get that reaction of, it's more like just thirsty reaction. But it's super, isn't it insane? For 117. That's pretty good, right? Yeah. And I mean, he's got something going. He's also a musician. So, cool. I'm excited to hear his story. How do you be, he lived in like Tennessee and did the whole Nashville thing.
Oh, okay.
And now he's making bourbon. He lives in LA. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I know this interview is about you, but I mean, it's pretty neat. How people like you kind of just reach out to people and you have this thing, this platform. It's be nice. So I want to hear about the flight school because obviously you're flying this little single prop plane.
Right.
Now, are you with people? Are you just up there by yourself or?
So you're with someone for the majority of the flight. So it's a 2-seater. It's called like a tandem seat. So it's one behind the other.
Oh, so you're
right. So the instructor in the T6, like I said, in this first phase of flight school where everyone's flying the T6. The instructor's behind you, you're in the front seat. And it's a pretty high-performance plane. I mean, we did aerobatics and everything.
Yeah.
So
I didn't think they were going to put you in like a clunker. It's a nice plane.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting to fly. And the instructor's behind you. You do a few solo flights where you're the only guy in there. So so that's pretty exciting to fly something like that all on yourself or all on your own.
Yeah, that sounds super fun.
you do all types of flying. You do formation flying. We were flying with another aircraft, like like you see the blue. Not like I said, aerobatics.
You're like
all kinds of stuff. Not quite that good. But so it was a lot of fun. Oh
right, you must have been like getting such a high off that.
Oh yeah.
You're like coming home from work. Jay, guess what? She's like, I don't really care. I mean, because like she's like she doesn't experience this. You're like, I'm sure she's excited for you, but you're like you don't understand.
Oh yeah, I know. She's like so excited and supportive, but it's one of those things where it's hard to explain unless you're actually in the aircraft, in the cockpit.
She's like, I've been on a plane before, in the passenger seat. It doesn't seem that exciting. You're like, no, dude. I was like, woo, turn left, turn right.
Right.
So, how long is that school?
So everything with flight school varies based on weather and things like that because it's not like it can't be very standardized because depending on the maintenance on the aircraft and the weather and things like that.
Really? It's all about hours,
Yeah.
not so much.
Exactly.
Yeah, so if you don't get the hours because of weather, you're there longer.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So, but it's supposed to be 6 to 8 months or so for that first chunk. But yeah, it varies.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's again another short stay.
Mm-hmm.
Were you in there? Was it the winter or the summer when you were there?
So
I mean, I know
we
6
ended
months,
up.
but
Yeah, we'll get into it. But the next phase was flying helicopters, and since I did end up flying helicopters, we actually stayed where we were because that's also in Florida.
Okay.
So we stayed in Florida for a total of 2 years, actually.
Okay. But how long did it take you to stay in the school? Like when you were flying, was there bad weather? Was it summer? Was it winter?
So that first school for me, flying the T6, was about 8 months or so.
Okay, so you had the longer side of
Right.
it. Okay. So yeah, because I mean 8 months can go into winter, obviously.
Right.
But Florida, it's kind of like here, right? You kind of really don't have a winter.
Yeah,
it's not
it
really
did get
cold,
a little
it's just
colder
more
than
storms.
expected because we were up in the Panhandle.
Oh,
but yeah, it's a lot of storms. That was the big
That's
thing.
the big thing.
Yeah.
You're like, did you fly in weather though, or they don't even let you do that?
Not really. They're pretty restrictive about flying through thunderstorms.
Yeah,
and things like
they're
that.
like, look, he's just learning. Let's not throw like
yeah,
a
we
couple
hit a little
lightning
bit of
bolts.
turbulence every once in a while, but yeah, they don't mess with weather too much there.
Now, do you start with simulators too at the beginning of that school, or is it like, hey man, we're going out with an instructor, so you're good?
You do, yeah. You start with simulators.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, they have pretty nice simulators. But it's a mix throughout the entire syllabus.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you then. So you bring up helicopters. So you're a Marine, or you're a Marine at this time, correct?
At this point, yeah. So as soon as I graduated the Naval Academy, so even at graduation,
Correct.
the Marines wear one uniform and the Navy wears the
Got
other.
it. So now at this flight
that's where
school,
the division happens.
you guys are just all hanging out together.
Right.
You got Marines and Naval guys
and
hanging
even
out.
Coast Guard too.
Oh, okay.
So everyone, Marines, Navy, and Coast Guard all go to
Those
Naval
three,
flight
yeah,
school.
because Coast Guard's definitely a branch of the Navy too. So they're all hanging out. There's a certain class, correct? Like, are you with a class of 400 or 40 or what?
So you show up with a class, and they're pretty small actually. I think the class I started with was maybe 10 or 12.
And that's what you're talking about how they space you out, right? Because they can't throw everyone
yeah,
everywhere.
Exactly.
Okay.
But because, like I said, everything varies because of weather and maintenance, things like that, you don't really stick with that class.
Oh, because some people could have more hours.
Yeah,
and they started sooner and they
leave.
Right,
Got exactly. One person might get canceled because of a thunderstorm one day, and the other person doesn't. So everyone kind of is on their own path.
Got it. So let me ask you then, going into that's what I wanted to talk about. What's the decision to become a helicopter pilot? Like, when does that process come?
Right, so...
Because obviously you're flying planes this whole time,
right.
So do they say, do you want to fly helicopters, or do you train on both in that school?
So at the end of flying the T6, that single-engine prop plane, whenever you graduate, again, you put in your preferences. And for the Marine Corps, you have four areas that you can go into. So you can either do helicopters, you can do jets, or you can do... multi-engine, so that's the C-130, like the big tanker plane, cargo planes, or you can do what's called
You
tilt.
could fly them bastards?
Yeah.
Dude, I see those things like, well, I actually flew, what was the one, the ones that delivered mail on the carriers? The CODs, they were CODs, is what they were called.
Like C-2s, I think?
They're called COD for short, or something when you fly backwards. But you're talking about those big bastards that you see that they're super slow. They look like they're going like 4 miles an hour. That you could have flown those?
So yeah, that was another option, and then the last option was tilt rotor, they call it, which is the Osprey. So basically the ones that have...
They go like that,
exactly.
where they can do that. I'm shocked you didn't fly those, bro.
Yeah, so that was an option.
But helicopters seem badass.
I mean, and honestly, so I ended up I was very conflicted throughout.
Oh, okay.
Throughout
you're
all.
Like, this is a career, right?
Well, and you're making a big decision as far as what you're going to fly. And so I was interested in jets and helicopters.
Okay.
I thought originally going into flight school, coming out of Marine training, like helicopters are a little bit more like what the Marine Corps does. You know, they can land on the ground, pick up people.
You're dropping people off, picking them up.
Exactly.
You're the infantry. You're like, but get in. You see all those movies and stuff. Versus, a Marine pilot, it's more like you see the Navy movies flying F-14s, F-16s.
Exactly.
Not that the Marines can't fly those. I'm just saying, like, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. And so I went into flight school thinking I wanted to fly helicopters.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun flying the T6, like I said, doing the aerobatics and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was awesome. So I was super 50-50 on jets or helicopters. And jets actually require a minimum score, so everyone gets a score because you're graded on every single
Oh, I
flight
can
you
imagine.
do. So yeah, everyone gets like a minimum score by the end of flight school, and jets require you to hit at least a certain number, otherwise you're not even qualified.
Yeah, you might as well just go somewhere else.
Yeah. So I ended up having the score I needed, and so I was like, okay, I was like I said, I was split, but I was like, I'll throw my name in the hat for jets then.
Sure.
The week I selected, it's all just week by week too. So the week I selected, there was only one slot for jets, and there was a guy with better scores than me. So
really,
yeah, and so helicopters were my number 2, and that's how I ended up helicopters. Yeah. So which I was still super excited about.
You weren't really like you were just like and it worked out where it made the choice for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he had a little bit better score, even though you qualified. He's like, okay, cool.
Right,
now I know that's the path I should go. Right. I mean, that's the way it took me. That's awesome, dude. So now, I mean, this sounds like let's see, we got but so now I'm kind of curious about. So is there a freaking helicopter school now too?
There is. And
dude, you're 25.
I know.
Luckily, everything's only like 3 to 6 months, or you'd be like 40 by the time you can fly a damn plane.
I know. And
you're like, oh, you're out, buddy. You did 20 years. You just learned how to fly.
Yeah, I know that's what it feels like sometimes. But thankfully, the helicopter. So if I had gotten jets, those schools are at a different location. We would have had to move to either Mississippi or Texas because all these schools are in different spots.
Yeah, no, I know. But Mississippi, I didn't think of that.
I know.
One.
It's funny. But thankfully, the school for helicopters is at the same base as the T6
And that's
was.
why you had said you'd end up staying longer in Florida.
Exactly.
Because,
we ended up staying a little bit longer term, didn't have to move. Flew a little trainer helicopter there for,
and what's
again,
a trainer helicopter? What does that mean? Is it just tiny?
Yeah,
like
it's pretty
like
small.
Like the kind you see in the news? Like
That's honestly a good example.
Yeah.
Only had 2 pilot seats. It had 3 passenger seats in the back, but the engine wasn't even really powerful enough to carry many passengers.
It was just for decoration.
You could carry about 1 passenger and full tank gas, and that was about it.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So they're pretty small.
Yeah,
kind of like what you'd see in the news. And
wow.
Flew that for about 6 or 8 months again, and then that's when I got my wings. Officially became an aviator.
Oh, okay.
Then,
so that once you graduate that, you are truly an aviator.
That's when they pin on your gold wings.
Wow.
And, so.
And then you get your orders to go somewhere, correct?
Right.
Oh,
which was here. Yeah.
That's a great place to stop because our timer went off and we have 2 more shots. But no, that's fine. I'm just saying this one. So I know this bottle, Evan Williams. I mean, obviously it's just a tradition. It's almost like a Jack. It's like an everyday. Yeah. But I've had the Evan Williams. It's actually like a select bottle where it's got its own little, I think it's called single barrel or whatever, but it's got its own number and it's been,
Right.
So I usually get that one.
Okay.
But I was like, you know what? I've never had just regular Evan Williams. And not only on the show, just ever. So it's like, why not try it? It's like bring it up in the show and we'll see how it goes. Because I've never really drank it straight.
I think I have, but the label I remember looks different than this. So.
Well, you probably had the Evan Williams, probably the more higher end.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you are an officer, so, they're not going to be like, hey, man, let's have regular Evan Williams. That's for us folk, right? Us enlisted folk. Cheers. But you know what? Isn't that easy?
Yeah, that goes down really, honestly, probably.
It's
flavor.
No
the flavor isn't as diverse, I guess, as the other ones.
If
but
you think about it, none of these are your everyday 80 proof. This is 80 proof.
Oh, okay.
So it's your, it's like these are ones you don't mix.
Right.
This is like your Evan Williams and Coke or Evan Williams and ginger beer or, I'm not saying it's not good enough to drink straight because it is.
Yeah,
but it's definitely not your dude, I'm going to get a buzz on one of these.
Right.
Like one shot. If we did 6 of these, we'd be totally could walk a line, But that one was good.
Yeah,
you're right.
I'm
that was super easy.
By it, yeah.
Yeah, wait till you taste the Makers. Makers, 46 I've had on the show. I've never had regular Makers, but it is such a good. I hope at the end I'll be like, ugh. Be like, prove me wrong. So we got into the fact that you are done. You finally are a pilot, right?
Right.
You're a helicopter pilot. So what was I going to hit on? Oh, so you were talking about how so now you're a pilot. Now you get your orders to come to California, correct?
Right. So even with that, again, it comes down to the scores and the people you're graduating with.
Holy shit.
So as a Marine helicopter pilot at that point, there's 3 different helicopters you can fly. You can fly Cobras, which is more like an attack. Yeah, it's like more of an attack helicopter. You can fly Hueys, which is like utility.
The recovery?
And that's what I fly.
Oh, okay.
And then you can fly CH-53s, which is like really big, kind of more like cargo.
That's like, is that the two props?
No, not the two. We got rid of those.
Oh, okay.
But they have one very large.
Just a ginormous one. Okay, so that's
Yeah.
basically replaced the two that would
Right.
haul stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so coming out of flight school as a helicopter pilot, you can choose between those three, and then you can also choose between West Coast, meaning you're out here at either Pendleton or Miramar, or East Coast, being at Camp Lejeune.
Camp Lejeune, okay.
Right.
And where's that at?
It's in North Carolina.
North Carolina, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've heard Camp Lejeune. I
Yeah.
just never really knew where it was. So
Right.
you got North Carolina or California.
Right.
And
so
it's obvious.
So yeah. At that point, at that point, coming from helicopter, I wanted to fly Hueys.
Right.
And then
why
wanted to be out here.
Hueys?
So.
Just curious.
So yeah, it was definitely another like decision that was kind of hard to make, but.
Well, 1 of 3. That's a small one, so it's
Yeah.
hard, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
You're like, damn, they all have their advantages, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But it kind of felt like the perfect balance because they're known as like a utility helicopter. So we have room in the back to carry passengers, to carry cargo, so we can drop Marines off, like infantry, Marines, or special forces.
Right.
But we also have weapons, so we have a crew in the back that can shoot 50
Oh, is that the
cal.
ones where you can shoot out the side?
Yeah. And then me as a pilot, I can shoot rockets out of. So we carry rocket.
Oh,
pods
you
and
can
things.
do the ones where you're shooting at people.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
exactly.
Dude,
So,
that's badass, bro.
So
you're like Cobra meets cargo guy, right? So
Yeah.
it's in the middle.
So yeah, a Cobra is kind of
Is that the ones that fly like that? The Cobras that like kind of go so like they're kind of more like a leaner.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're pretty narrow because it's only just like the T6 I described.
Right.
It's two pilots
Two
and that's
people.
it.
Yeah, and that's
it's
just for
one
combat,
behind the other,
right?
and that's it. Yeah. All they do is shoot rockets
shit.
and missiles.
That's awesome.
That's all. Which is awesome.
Yeah,
obviously.
I know. Yeah.
But that's
you
all
kind
they
of got
do.
the blend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the CH-53s, the really big ones. All they really
Just
do is
deliver
carry
stuff.
cargo
Yeah.
and people and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Huey felt like the perfect mix.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, that's super freaking awesome. So when you came out to Camp Pendleton, how long have you been here? Let's go there.
So we arrived here May, I think like May 16th, something like that.
2020?
Right. So yeah,
Holy
we've only
shit,
been out
you're
here
fresh.
five months or so.
Wow.
6 months.
So when you're flying, it's all. I mean, so let's talk about this. So before you started, you said something about you're part of a squadron, but you haven't been issued a
right. So again, another training step with the military, obviously. So even though I'm now a winged aviator, and I fly helicopters,
right.
I've never obviously flown a Huey coming from Florida. Just flying that trainer that we talked about, kind of like the small news helicopter. I've never flown a Huey before.
Okay. So you pick Hueys, but now you have to train on
Right,
Hueys.
exactly.
Okay.
So again, I got to come out here for another. It varies, but in this case, it's going to be about 4 or 5 months or so.
Okay.
Of flying the Huey before I am officially like qualified in the Huey, and I can go to a squadron that will actually deploy.
Okay.
And we'll go fly the Huey. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, because like when we would go on deployments on the carrier, you've got the squadron would join you.
Right.
So you're a ship, but then the squadron is part of that ship.
comes on the ship.
So you're saying that would be what you're talking about.
Right.
You're training over in Camp Pendleton.
Right.
You're flying your Hueys. You're doing all that good stuff, and then eventually you get assigned to a squadron.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why since May has this all been training then?
Right. So I got here in May. Just because of COVID and all that,
right,
I had to quarantine a little bit, so I actually didn't start really until.
So did you guys? Sorry to stop you there.
No,
so did you go from like Florida and then you quarantined in between, or
we drove straight here. They wouldn't really let us stop on the way, so they give us 6 days to move out here.
So when did you actually get here and not to the base? May?
Yeah, it was May.
So what did you do between then? Is what I'm saying, because there was a quarantine started in March.
Right, so we were still finishing flight school in March and April.
So during the whole quarantine, you were still training, and they were cool with that, because you were kind of
with
on
a
your
few
own
extra
anyway.
restrictions. They made us wear
Of
face
course,
masks and things.
But you were kind of like never going. Were you going home every night, or were you living on this base?
Going home. I had a house in the Pensacola area.
Oh, so that's why they wanted you to wear a mask and stuff, because
right.
you were going home at night.
Exactly.
And they didn't know what you were doing necessarily.
That's the nice thing about we were talking about officer versus enlisted. Like I've never had to live like in barracks on a base.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
they give you
right. So
officer housing is a little different.
I was able to live off base. In Pensacola.
Well, I didn't mean to bring that's cool though to know. And then when you what happened? Like, what's the pandemic atmosphere over at Camp Pendleton?
So they had us quarantine for
14
2 weeks.
days.
Yeah, when we got here, and then I went and checked in to my training squadron.
Okay.
Here. And then really once I got there, I mean, nothing's different because of Corona other than that we have to wear a mask at the office.
Because you're in the military.
Yeah, they're not going to slow training.
Exactly. They're like, that's the worst thing to do because then now you're vulnerable.
Right. Yeah. And so I started flying the Huey by June. We kind of have a ground school thing, like I mentioned before, where you're taking tests and you're just learning about the aircraft itself before you actually get in it. And then by June we were flying, and since June until now, I've been flying the Huey. And, I think I told you by next week I should be officially qualified in the Huey. And then I'll move on to another squadron away from the training squadron, and that squadron's one that actually will go out and deploy, things like that.
So is that when you talk about the training? So when you show up, is it based on hours again, flying?
Yeah. So there's certain like we call them events that need to get done. So you have so many events just
that are on the books that like, hey, checklist.
Right, exactly. So you have to do so many events with just learning how to do real basic stuff like taking off and landing and things like that.
But it has to be done.
Right, exactly.
And done well.
Right, and you have so many that are revolve around shooting our weapons that we have, about flying into formation like I talked about. And so there's so many events in each of those categories and simulators as well. So you're still flying in a simulator.
So when you go up to work, are you literally like, boom, when you check in, is it 5 days a week, first of all, Monday through Friday, right? Other than guard duties and all that stuff. I'm just saying, like you talked about occasionally on the weekends. But you're checking in at like 8 in the morning, let's just say, and you're training. That's pretty much what you're doing.
Right. So the thing that's a little unique about Marine Corps pilots and Navy pilots as well, at least as far as I've heard, compared to Army pilots and Air Force, is that we also have a ground job, we call it.
Oh, okay.
So, obviously there's a lot of, like, our squadron itself is around 300 to 400 people, I think.
Oh, okay.
Because that includes enlisted maintainers and things like that.
Yeah,
that just
the whole thing. It's almost like a NASCAR crew.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You've got everyone to take care of that whole thing.
Right, yeah.
The driver,
you have one
and
driver, you have
that.
everyone else.
Yeah, okay.
And so, so with that, obviously there's a lot of administrative things to keep that running.
Right.
So the pilots are the ones that keep that running in the Marine Corps and the Navy. So I have a ground job that's assigned to me. It's mostly administrative paperwork type things.
Yeah, you have
but
to
yeah,
do some paperwork.
it's something that comes with the job. Whereas, at least as far as I've heard, like Air Force and Army, they're strictly pilots, and that's all they do.
Oh.
So that's the thing.
That's kind of nice.
Yeah. So that is the thing. Like now, I probably fly like 3 days a week or so.
Oh, okay.
But then if I'm not flying, I'm in the office.
You have to do admin
paper.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there is a part to that, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like a police officer. Like you may go out in the field and arrest somebody, but then you have that paperwork stuff you have to do. So it's kind of similar. Like you're flying, but you have to log your hours and talk about the whole thing.
Yeah, of course.
Do all that stuff. Because there has to be history and logging. And I mean, if something happens, believe me, I was on a carrier for 4 years. I knew shit happened. I mean, there's stuff that like, oh my God, how are we going to explain this? Like a plane split in half. Like it was so weird. A guy got sucked into an intake. How do you explain that? It's like what there was probably miles of paperwork back in the 90s for that. Now it's just a couple emails, you know what I'm saying? Like, everyone's like, holy shit, I got to write this out. You're like, do you know how to write? Like versus type? Do you know cursive? My mom brought that up. Like, one of the teachers on last week's episode talked about how she taught cursive. And we're like, what's cursive?
Cursive.
To most people, right? It's all print. I'm like,
it's funny. I haven't used cursive since elementary school.
But I would rather do it because it flows versus
fast.
block letters. But no one can read cursive if you're bad. So anyway, it's just so funny how times have changed. I'm like I said, 25 years, but you're still a pilot.
Right.
And that's never changed.
Right.
Like maybe just the newer technology and stuff. So we're going to do our last shot, and then we're going to wrap up because I want to know a little bit about that, okay? So this next one, like I said, is Maker's Mark. And you've had this then?
Right.
The regular? Okay. Obviously, he's all a professional whiskey drinker. He's like, yeah. I went to the Naval Academy, bro. I've drank all these. No, it is, yes. I don't know why they make the lid so hard to get off, but whatever. It's all about their labeling. You see the little commercials where they dip them in wax. But this one's definitely sweet. Yeah, this is good. Have you ever had the 46?
I haven't.
Oh, okay. And they have a cask strength, which is like 112, so it's close to the boons. Yeah. Dude, that is pretty good. That might even be better than Evan. So I don't want to knock him down a chain, but that's pretty good. Wow, that's really easy. I'm gonna have to have some of that tonight on a cube. So, to wrap up, and this has been actually, like, not saying that all my episodes have been cool, but this is very, like, interesting because when I delve into something, sometimes I learn about someone, but I've not learned about the process so much about something, you know? So, let's see, I can't tell what time it is, it doesn't matter. You have 2020, you should be able to see that red dot. Like, what's it say up there?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how you read that.
The only reason I say that is because when I was in the Navy, they said, I didn't have 2020. I got glasses. Oh, you got a bug on you. Yeah. But when I was in the Navy, I was like, I want to be a helicopter pilot because you don't need 2020. You can wear glasses. Yeah. Obviously, that didn't work out because you have to be an officer. But I was like, oh, I didn't want to, like, that's what I heard. You have to have 2020 to be a fighter, or like a jet pilot, but you could fly helicopters if you had glasses. I don't know if that's true or not. But
so, yeah, as far as I know,
you obviously have 2020.
Well, I do, thankfully, and uncorrect it, I don't have contacts about never needed or anything. As far as I know, the standards aren't different between jets and helicopters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's all the same. But the awesome thing is now, kind of in the more, I guess, modern era, like at the academy.
True. I mean, this was a long time ago.
Yeah, and so at the academy, if you were, like I said, it's kind of a process over those 4 years, finding out what you're interested in and what you want to do. So they will pay for corrective surgery.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. LASIK wasn't around.
And it's funny. It's not LASIK. They call it PRK. For some reason, the military doesn't like LASIK surgery.
Well,
they call it
but
PRK.
it's the same. It's
still it's a corrective eye surgery.
Yeah.
So you're allowed to have it.
If you're getting like good scores and stuff, they're like, we will correct your.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people get free eye surgery while they're at the Naval Academy. There's lots of benefits.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. You're like, that's one of them anyway. Yeah, I haven't looked at the camera once. I keep staring at him because I'm just trying to keep this interview going. So let's talk a little bit about the wrap it up. So you're happy now. You've got Jade here. She's working for a common friend of ours, right? Yeah. Who's going to be on the show. And then you're living in Oceanside, California, about what, 10 miles from the base, maybe 5?
Yeah,
6?
Yeah, maybe
somewhere
10,
there.
10 or so, yeah.
Because you kind of got to get out first.
Right,
and then go
exactly,
up,
get on the 5.
And then you show up, you go to work every morning, and you're about to be assigned to a squadron, correct? Or no, you're with a squadron.
Well, I'm with a training squadron is the difference.
Correct.
And I'll move on probably within the next week or two to a deployable squadron.
But you're not necessarily going to get deployed automatically.
Eventually, so it's basically a big rotation.
Right.
So I don't know for sure what squadron I'm going to, but I expect to get deployed sometime next year.
So when I was in the Navy, we would do like these workups. So you do a 6-month deployment, but you'll have workups that are in between 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and you have the guys training and doing all the flying in and catching the cable and all that stuff. So you're still going to do short-term deployments? Once you're assigned, you're not always going to just be home and then go out to sea or whatever. You're going to be doing these deployments.
Right, yeah, you'll do workups kind of in the same way.
Right,
so I told you about my friend who brought the Triple Deuce whiskey. So he's out he already knows he's getting deployed in May.
Oh, okay.
So his squadron right now is out in 29 Palms,
right.
which is still California, but basically like the desert.
Hot desert.
Yeah.
It's basically Palm Springs.
Yeah, so his squadron is out there right now.
Okay. And he's a helicopter pilot.
Right, yeah, and he's a helicopter.
So he's a little bit older? Why did he get a squadron?
So no, he was the one, like I said, he was my roommate out of the Naval Academy, so that kind of just shows how the different phases of flight school,
that
you move
Florida
at different
thing you
paces
were
a
talking
little
about.
bit. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, you move at a little bit of a different pace. So he's, only a few months ahead of me.
Yeah, no, I know, but he's now, like you said, you're going to be assigned, and he's just a couple months ahead.
Yeah, he just got assigned to a squadron about a month ago, and I will within the next few weeks.
So it's just that window of weather and everything. Okay, now he's a helo guy, though.
Right.
And what's he flying?
He flies the CH-53,
so
which
he's
is kind
doing
of like
the
big
one. Oh, okay, that's pretty cool, yeah. So he's out there with a squadron, but he's training.
Right, in the desert right now. So he is going to come back. So technically his squadron is down at Miramar, which is south of here.
South of here.
So that's where there's no CH-53s at Camp Pendleton. They're all at Miramar for whatever reason. But yeah, that's where his squadron is at, and then they're going to do workups and everything until May, and then he's expecting to go on deployment in May. Then.
And again, what is your deployment considered? Are you part of the Navy then? You mean you're going to be on a ship? Or is your deployment like, hey, we have to go train in wherever? I mean, I don't want to throw out countries right now. I'm just saying, like, what does that all mean?
So the two deployments right now that things in the Middle East have kind of died down.
Sure.
The only two deployments really that helicopter squadrons, at least on the West Coast, are doing right now is either on a ship. So with the Navy, so like you've probably seen, with the Navy going out on a ship, and you patrol around the kind of like the Eastern Pacific area, like Southeast Asia area, or you go on a unit deployment program, they call it, to Japan.
Oh, okay.
So it's either really Japan or on a ship.
Oh, okay.
That it's one of the two.
So my buddy was on a amphibious assault in the Navy. I mean, he was on a ship. It was like an amphib or whatever, right? You got carriers, you got amphibs, you got destroyers, and all that stuff. So what do helicopter? Is it a helipad or something? What do they go on? What kind of ship?
So if we do go on a ship for our deployment, we'll go on mostly an LHD or an LHA.
Thank you. Yeah, LHA
it's
or
one
LHD.
of the,
yeah.
So
I was trying to remember
it
the
kind
numbers.
of looks like a carrier, but a little bit smaller.
It's very small.
Yeah.
You guys don't have that thing underneath, but you're just a helicopter.
Right.
Like instead of jets, you're a helicopter pad.
Right.
Yeah. That's the LHA part. Yeah. Okay. I just couldn't remember, dude. It's been a long time. But I knew the whole LPH and all that stuff. Yeah, because he was like over there on 28th Street, or 32nd Street. Excuse me. That where those guys are, and we were on Coronado, where the carriers were.
Yeah.
So I was always like, I couldn't remember what that was. That was pretty cool. So before we wrap up, so talk about. We already know where you're at now. Let's talk about the flying aspect. So I want like just a 2-minute wrap up on controls and what you're looking at when you're flying and all that stuff. Because, I mean, this could be like some kid watching it and be like, dude, I want to fly. Like, what is it that you're looking at and how are you flying? And
so,
how many buttons are there? Like 9,000? I mean, I look at these things.
There are a lot of buttons. Honestly, that part is not the thing that's hard to get down.
Oh, really?
So yeah, and it's funny. Instructors will even like joke and reference, like they'll call them like monkey skills, like, meaning that anyone can learn them.
Yeah,
and it really
it's
is
memorization.
like they'll call them like wiggling the sticks. I mean, it's like it's simple. I mean, it is tough to get down, especially helicopters. Going from a plane to a helicopter, like hovering in that, it's hard.
It's a whole different challenge. Yeah.
But it's still, at the end of the day, it's just moving sticks and like figuring out how to work that.
Right.
The big thing that comes with being a pilot, and especially a helicopter pilot, really is like the decision making of instructors testing you of like, okay, you have this emergency now, like what do you do?
Right.
Or this tactical situation going on, and so how do you handle that? So that's really like kind of like their big test of how you can handle things.
Now, is there a pass or fail?
With every single flight, you can
really?
pass or fail.
So like, you just killed 300 people, right? Like that decision was wrong,
and
right?
it does suck to some extent. I mean, I've been dealing with that. Like I said, we were in Florida for 2 years and here for 6 months. So the past 2+ years, like every single day is almost like an exam in a sense, because
that sounds brain fucking.
I mean,
sorry, I was like,
you could ask my wife. I mean, I come home every night and study, and it gets annoying to some extent, but like you have to in order to be prepared for every single thing, because it's not so much about the button pushing and the moving the sticks. It's about like this, you just got this emergency or you just got this situation. Like, how do you handle it from here?
Now, I don't want to. I'm just cracking up because we're going to wrap up, but I'm laughing because, like, as 25, there's been so many movies in the past, about like certain things, like helicopter stuff with the whole. Have you watched any of those? Like, do you understand all those things? Like, where you're talking about decisions that Platoon and all those movies have made, right? Like, as a helicopter pilot, So have you watched any of those to be like, damn, that's like a real, like not a real scenario, it's a movie, but I get it. It's like at some point there was real decisions to be made.
Yeah, I mean, some military movies in general are kind of like cheesy.
Classics.
Or just shit, and you're just like, okay, that would never happen.
Yeah,
But yeah, there are definitely
I'm
some that are.
Okay.
Yeah,
so some you're like, dude. That's not gonna
exactly.
happen.
Yeah,
Okay,
I say that
Good
a
to
lot.
know that.
No, I say that a lot for sure. But I mean, some are a little bit more spot on, and you're like, okay, I could see this happening.
That really happening. Okay, that's pretty cool to kind of know that like some are spot on, and we won't get into which ones because we don't want to kill the directors, but. I'm just saying, like, that's the kind of stuff they put you through.
Yeah.
Like, you have to think fast, or else something could happen the other way. Right. And they put you into that all the time. Mm-hmm. Well, that's cool. Well, listen, guys, we're wrapping up. I just want to say thank you to Ryan and his wife for allowing me to get Ryan drunk. He's definitely not feeling any pain. But I love the fact that we've got an old, like, enlisted guy from the Navy. and I look almost as young as you. I mean, let's be honest, right? I mean, 25
Yeah,
years
we can
doesn't
both
show.
be 25.
Yeah, we can both pull it off. But anyway, I do appreciate you guys showing up, and I just want to thank you so much for allowing me, for only knowing me for what, like 2 hours?
Oh, yeah.
To like pull this out. Like, this is going to be a good episode because he's telling it like it is, and I love the story of the like, you guys are young, and that whole marriage thing, like, it's so cool that it still worked out.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You guys are like, you know, together. Like, watching you guys talk to each other when we were there that day, it was so cool. And I'm like, that's how my wife and I, once I met her, it was like we weren't high school sweethearts because we were from 2 different places. But it's like you kind of know, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, that's so cool. You guys are like traditional St. Louis, Missouri Cup, like, no, like high school, boom, and she just stays with you the whole time, and you guys did the long distance thing. It's so fun. So thank you so much. Peace out, and we'll see you guys next week.